Call to order the June 19th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Barbie? Here. Buckley? Castro?
Here.
Klein?
Yes, here.
Maxwell? Wright?
Here.
Chair Doe?
Here.
5 present.
Approval of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? There being none, I'll take a motion.
So
So moved by Barbie,
Second.
second by Wright. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Approval of the April 3rd, 2019 minutes. Any additions, deletions, or corrections?
I move to approve the minutes, April 3rd, 2019.
So moved by Castro,
Second.
second by Barbie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The May 8th, 2019 meeting minutes. Any additions, deletions, or corrections?
I move approval.
Moved by Klein,
Second.
second by Castro. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. This is the public participation portion of the meeting. Anyone who has any comments or questions that is not part of the agenda, we welcome your comments at the podium. If it's not part of our agenda. I know it gets a little confusing sometimes, no problem. Okay, so we have none, we're going to move on to new business. We have a public hearing tonight, a petition by RLDR LLC for special use permit for a video gaming establishment in the GC General Commercial District to be located at 122 East Hillcrest Drive. And I open to the petitioner first. Correct? Yeah. Yep. So if you can come to the podium and give your name and address, please, and then anything you'd like to present.
Yep. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming in. My name is Tsimo Spajowski, and I'm from 122 East Hillcrest Drive here in DeKalb. And I'm looking to open up a video gaming establishment at that location, a new business, and I'm here in front of you guys. Hopefully, work this plan out.
Okay. What we do is we will have the city do their presentation to us.
Okay.
We'll open it up to the public, and then if we have any further questions, we'll have you come up to the podium.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. So I open to the city.
Thank you. As noted, the applicant is requesting a video gaming establishment at 122 East Hillcrest Drive. The slide there shows this is a multi-tenant building on the south side of Hillcrest, is east of North First Street. Multi-tenant building, the site's about 0.66 acres. It's zoned general commercial. A video gaming establishment is a special use in that district. Again, a video gaming establishment is, per our UDO definition, is a standalone video gaming operation where the video gaming is the primary use in the establishment. The tenant, Tsimo, is the owner of Fanatico's Restaurant on Black Hawk Road, and he tends to be the operator-manager of this operation. The building on itself is about 8,500 square feet. The video gaming will be located at towards the eastern end of the building in about a 1,500 square foot tenant space. There's 4 other tenants in there, currently a pet groomer, beauty supply shop. There's a image showing the front of the building there from across Hillcrest, a barbershop, and a tobacco store. At this location, there used to be a thrift store that was there a few years ago. There's a total of 35 parking spaces on the site. And per the UDO standards, looking at the square footage and the uses, there are 34 spaces required, so they do have adequate parking. So the applicant did provide a little background in the packet that was provided on the proposed operation, what they're planning to do. Just some background. Back in March of 2018, the city, through a couple actions, increased the number of liquor licenses for gaming establishments from 7 up to 10. And those included, those were conditional, that each of those had to get a special use permit, go through the process. They had to get a liquor license, apply for one within a certain time. And those 3 were Macy's at 854 South 4th Street. They went through the process, and actually they went through the commission last year. They're actually open. Fatty's for their new location across West Lincoln Highway, the north side, the vacant lot. They got a conditional liquor license. They haven't submitted their zoning petitions yet. And then Fanatico's at this location, and they, SEMO at that time chose not to go forward with the liquor license application and zoning, so he didn't meet the timeframes, so that ordinance became null and void for him. So he's had an interest in getting reapproval for the location. So just past May, the council approved an amendment to the code to allow an increase in the fixed number of video gaming to accommodate this particular use, with conditions that he had to get a special use permit and get the liquor license and video gaming license. State and local law does require that a liquor license has to be held if you have video gaming machines. The applicant indicates that they plan to be open during the week, Monday through Sunday, to match the hours allowed for the liquor license, and those are Monday through Wednesday, 6 a.m. to 1 a.m., Thursday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 2 a.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. The applicant in his summary also indicated that there will not be any hard liquor served. He plans to just serve soft beverages, wine, beer, and some snacks. If you recall, for Maisie's along South 4th Street, the commission did recommend the sale of alcohol not occur before 10 a.m. We did have, if you recall, the public hearing, some nearby property owners speak regarding concern about selling of alcohol and having video gaming in the proximity of the school there and the residential areas. So that was a condition that was added to Maisie's based on that. The applicant's aware of that condition, went over that with him. He's willing to abide by the same thing. I didn't make it as a condition in here. It's up to the commission if you want to have that type of restriction, which you can. You can restrict the hours or make a recommendation to as part of your motion. Also with Maisie's, the commission did make some conditions related to the advertising of liquor and the gaming and their signage. In terms of the temporary signs, window signs, and wall signs, I did not include that as a condition. That certainly can be done if you wish to, if the commission wishes to do that. And again, with these, I made the applicant aware of what was done with Maisie's, and possibly that could be a condition added to. It's up to the commission. What I did recommend was, as conditions with the approval, that within 30 days after approval by the council, that the parking lot be restriped, which I guess it has been done already, 2 handicap parking signs be installed, and 3 shade trees be planted in the parkway along East Hillcrest Drive. So as we look at, that's the front of the store from the parking lot. There's a couple handicap spaces up front. So they've restriped it already, or most of the parking lot. They just need to add the handicap signs meeting our state and local law. Oops, I lost that, Jeff. There we go. If we can get that slide back up. There is very little, if any, green space on the site, so we're recommending 3. If you look in your packets, there's green space in the right-of-way along Hillcrest, where there's adequate room for adding 3 street trees. There's none there now, so I did talk to the applicant. He's agreed to add those. I did check with our Public Works Department too, and there's room to put those in there, and I did provide the so that's a condition as long as they meet our street tree guidelines in terms of sizes and species. So those are conditions I added. I'm going to jump to the citizen input and comments before I go through the findings. So we did receive a couple things, one email, one citizens response form. That was from Marvin and Jane Levinsky. They are the owners of Studio One Salon and Spa. That's at 1007 North 1st Street. Their form states that they're in opposition to the proposal, indicating they believe the location for this type of use is not appropriate. We also received an email from Charles and Christine Hacker, 117 Tilton Park Drive, had some questions on the proposal, which I answered back, and regarding their questions, and they responded that they were felt a little more at ease regarding the proposed operation based on that, so I copied the full email back and forth on that for the commission too. So the police department, as we did with Macy's, I had them review the number of calls for at video gaming operations, including the standalone, the ones at the bars, and the one at the fraternal organizations, and take a look at those. And we did that for Macy's too. And the police has indicated that there's no significant demand for public safety resources, nor any quality of life or crime concerns related to the existing standalone video gaming establishments. So the number of calls based on the other operations is quite a bit less, and they're pretty docile operations in terms of any police activity at all. So going back to the findings, which we do for each special use, the first one looks at the if they're complying with the underlying zoning district and the UDO, which they are. We do have a state law regarding distance to schools for liquor licenses of 100 feet. And the property is about 370 feet away from the nearest property line for Clinton Rosette Middle School. We also have in the ordinance for video gaming establishments, they have to be 500 feet apart from each other. That's just the standalone ones, not for anyone that's video gaming, but the standalone only. The nearest one is CJ's, that's at 1406 Sycamore Road, and they're just under 3,500 feet away, so they're well beyond the 500-foot minimum separation requirement we do have for video gaming establishments. Second findings looks at the surrounding neighborhood. Is this going to be detrimental to the surrounding area? We believe, or the findings indicate that it won't have a detrimental effect. The site has been zoned commercial for decades. Data from the police department indicates there's no quality of life or crime concerns related to these standalone video gaming establishments. In addition, we're recommending conditions be added to regarding the parking lot and street trees that will improve the appearance of the site and bring it more into compliance with the UDO, including any 2 handicap space signs. The third one looks at the immediate area. It's already pretty much developed. A surrounding area, we have a variety of commercial uses on Hillcrest, offices. There's a KinderCare across the street, a gas station, a couple of real estate offices, beauty salon, other commercial uses. Directly east of the site is a multifamily housing along Hillcrest. In terms of utilities, number 4, adequate utilities already provided to the site. And the fifth and last one looks at the, again, if it's detrimental to the area or not, how it's going to be in the public benefit for approval of this. And it's going to take up a vacant tenant space in the building, which has been vacant for a few years. Add some additional sales tax, video gaming revenue for the city will be generated. And we're recommending some site improvements to make it look a better looking site. So with those conclusions, the staff is recommending approval. There's a Samper motion approving the special use permit contingent upon the items in Exhibit A. And those are that the video gaming establishment be allowed to operate in the tenant space as shown on Exhibit B, and that's in your packet too, shown on the monitors. So we're just showing the tenant space where they're proposing to locate. Meaning if you approve it that way, which we've done the others, we did Macy's that way too. So if they wanted to go to different tenant space in the future or expand, they'd have to come back and go through the amend the special use permit and go through another hearing. The applicant has to obtain a city-issued liquor license for the site with a supplemental license for the video gaming as required in the ordinance approved in May. The parking lot stripe within 30 days, that's been done. Just recently, 2 handicap spaces have to have signs put up, and then 3 shade trees in the parkway as I described before. So that's a summary of the recommendation. If there's any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer those.
Okay, thank you.
On the parking situation, do you think there's enough room on that parking lot if all the businesses are open? There's no place for off-street parking there that I can see if that lot fills up.
No, based on the square footage and uses of all the uses in there, they were required, they had enough parking. There's 35 spaces on the site and 34 were required based on the square footage of the building. That's a gross square footage too, and actually the parking takes a look at the net where you take out restrooms and storage areas, which I didn't do. I just took the gross square footage of the building, and they do have adequate parking, so.
Excuse me. Okay, so I open the public portion. Anyone who would like to come and comment or has questions, you're welcome to come to the podium. Your turn now. Yep. If you could state your name and address, please, when you come to the podium. Yep.
I'll try not to, I have a loud voice, so I'll try not to speak too loudly. I'm Vicki Davis, and I live at 129 West Hillcrest Drive. I'm a very, very long-term resident of this town of almost 50 years, so I've seen a lot of changes. I don't have an objection to the establishment just because of it's an establishment. I adore SEMO, and I recommend the restaurant to everybody. It's very good. But what bothers me the most is that the town is starting to provide a certain impression that I don't think is what we would want. We have a lot of gambling. We have a lot of bars, tattoo parlors. I'm old, so I don't quite get it. But I find sometimes that when I look at the town that there's a certain sense of shabbiness and unattractiveness that never was there before. And I'm worried that another gambling establishment with liquor is not going to create a good impression. I don't like it being across from a child care center. And the little kids who walk by it every day on their way to school and back home again will be seeing people gambling. If there were not alcohol there, that might be a little more acceptable, but I worry that people will be outside smoking, which is what they do. They can't smoke inside of buildings. And I know from my youthful days that very often when bathrooms are not able to be used, people relieve themselves in inappropriate places, and I worry about that for children. Little league games are played on the corner in that little park next to the daycare center. People go there and they watch the fireworks on the 4th of July. People walk to and from on that street to go to the park and along the walkway along the river. And I would hate to have the impression that it would seem unsafe because the bike path goes to the university and it goes to the park. And I worry sometimes that perhaps things just wouldn't have a good appearance. Now, SEMO said he'd be willing not to serve liquor at this establishment. I might be a little more acceptable of that because drinking and driving on a very, very, very busy intersection with children crossing the street, it's just a recipe for disaster. That's how I feel about it. And while there isn't a lot of crime specifically associated with these establishments, there's a sufficient amount of strange things that happen in that area on a daily basis even without the establishment. And I wish I could say yes, SEMO, but I can't. It's a family area. It's next to, like the gentleman said, an apartment building that has small children in it and families across the street from a child care center and right around the way from a junior high. And I don't know if anybody were to go through a town, say if any of you were to drive through a small town in Illinois, and you saw that sort of a setup, would you go, wow, what a great place, I want to live there? DeKalb's going through some very, very difficult times, and I already know of 3 families who are saving money to move to Sycamore because of things like gambling and bars and these sort of situations all over town that's making young people not want to be here. And I guess that's all I wish I could say yes because I adore SEMO. But I just can't. I've just been here a long time. And I know you'll make the decisions you make and I will have to abide by them and however you decide, I have no choice. But if for some reason it is put through, if you could put at least the restrictions you put on in Macy's, at the very least. Because 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. in a semi-residential, it is a residential area, with school children, daycare centers, and families, it's just not nice at all. And that's, I guess, all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello all, long time no see. Dave Jacobson, pick an address. I have several through the city of DeKalb. I actually lived about a quarter mile from this place. Owned a place on Sunnymead for almost 10 years that actually Ron was a closing attorney on at one point long ago. So I know the neighborhood, I know the area pretty well. Obviously owning property there, I was the alderman to the immediate ward just a few blocks down the way for almost 8 years. Also a commercial property owner in DeKalb and understand the reality of where the commercial market has gone. The reality in filling a lot of these neighborhood strip centers has gotten very difficult. I remember when we first had the discussion up on the dais of whether or not we wanted to consider video gaming in our town. I remember the decision was pushed in a direction to support local business, to support local business owners, to support our local people. The first round of applicants were generally the regional and the Midwest tenants. We got some of the bigger name companies that were coming into many cities to open these up. And we also got a lot of our local bars, and that's what we were looking to help support at the time. Obviously, we understand the tenant has another location in DeKalb. We understand that they've been very good operators in that location. The reality is that location in many communities would be eligible for gaming and that they can do the operation in that current facility. In our community, we don't allow in a Class C establishment or what was known as a Class C restaurant liquor licensee to hold gaming machines, while many communities do. Which has obviously focused their attention onto another building in the very close vicinity, which again makes sense if they're going to support not only their local business owners, but residents of DeKalb. They would like to continue to increase their business and do better in our community, which is great. Again, being a commercial property owner, I have one of the gaming cafes out in my Elburn building that I own. They have had zero problems, not a single police call in 3 years. They have been outstanding tenants. They generally have 2 to 3 occupants at a time. They are quiet, they are clean, they are wonderful to deal with. The reality is the target market in most of these gaming facilities is the soccer mom community. I mean, it's not these degenerate gamblers and people that are coming out of the woodwork to gamble their last pennies away. It's generally soccer moms in the 28 to 45 range and senior citizens that are the target market for these gaming facilities, much as the casinos are, much as the gambling boats are, much as those things that are expanding in our state already through the last budget process. Again, the reality we're faced with in town, this is the market, this is where the state is going. We can either take a piece of that and keep that revenue in town and have it support our local business owners, or they can drive to Sycamore that has them downtown. They can drive to Malta that has one on a major street across from the college in a gas station. They can drive to Aurora. They'll soon have a Rockford boat. They can drive across the state border within an hour and take those dollars out of the community. I'd rather see them obviously remain in our community. So I hear some of the concerns, and again, the liquor sales in mine out in Elburn, the liquor sales, if you look at them, even in most of the DeKalb locations that aren't in the bars, that are in the gaming cafes, are limited. People will stay and have a drink, maybe 2. It's not, again, it's not this fear that I've heard from many that it's people going in there drinking 9 and 10 beers at 6 in the morning and gambling every penny they have in their wallet. That's not how these things are set up. That's not how they run. We've seen them in operation elsewhere in the city. We've seen them in operation elsewhere in the state. And in reality, they're an outstanding tenant for these small box neighborhood centers. And again, being a neighbor in the neighborhood, being someone that was here when we wrestled with the idea of having them in the first place, this property had been a neglected property for 20 plus years. It looked awful. It was in failing condition across the board before the new owners bought it. They have stuck tens of thousands of dollars in to refacing this building, to painting it, to bringing it up to code, to making it look nice in an eligible TIF district without TIF dollars. Those are the type of owners that when I sat up in that seat, I wanted to incentivize and I wanted to bring into our community and I wanted to help support. So I'd hope that when you're reviewing this tonight, that's something you take into consideration and you share in that genuine willingness to reach out to a local business owner and a local resident, help support their business. The last comment I will make, which again I continue to find somewhat amusing, is when residents claim that the lifestyle in DeKalb is degrading because of the amount of bars we have here. I was in Normal last week for Special Olympics, as I am every year for the last 18. They have twice the amount of bars we have on their campus and are flourishing. People are flocking there. I was in Champaign a month and a half ago. They have 3 or 4 times the amount of liquor licensed traditional bars, both college and non-college. Their community is flourishing. The young people want to go to places where there are social things to do. They want to go to places where they can go out and have a meal and have a beer and enjoy and be entertained. To understand that 30 and 40 years ago, DeKalb had 2 to 3 times as many liquor licenses as it does now, when you account for all the small bars downtown and in the neighborhoods and those things. It's because we've lost those bars that the young millennials and the college grads feel there's nothing to do here and are fleeing our community. The reality is we need to focus on that nightlife aspect if we ever hope to bring them into our community to stay and be long-term homeowners going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Normally, I would ask if there's anyone else in the public, but there were 2. And so we'll give you an opportunity to speak further if you would like to. But I'd like to open it up to the commission for any questions or comments. And I'll start with Mr. Castro.
Me?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I am.
All right. So I have a few questions, comments here. The first one is a pure technicality. Exhibit B, or the one that you had up for the most part. Oh, that's good. Although there was one that you had earlier that may be a little bit better. This is a technicality. There was a slide you had that had subject site and the square, the outline, that one. The outline that I see in black is significantly greater than the tenant property. Do you follow my logic here?
Yeah, this is just the thing we put in the hearing notice that went to the surrounding owners, is to show
Correct.
the subject site.
Correct. So the technical question is, are we rezoning, rezoning is not.
It's a special use permit.
Exactly. Are we providing a special use permit for this entire area that is within this, or is it just
Just
that
the tenant space.
The
as shown.
tenant space,
Yep.
okay. Okay. Thank you. I think that clarifies the technicality on my side. Another quick comment about this petition and the reference to Macy's. We did have an interesting discussion when Macy's came around, and I happened to, motivated by this petition, I did drive by Macy's a couple days ago. And I have to say that I'm personally satisfied by the limitation on the signage. And I'm going to extend that conversation or this comment to any establishment. Let's take the morals out of this equation. I mean, if we have Mickey Mouse in an establishment around here, I really don't want to see a huge Mickey Mouse. And I'm actually very satisfied that we had a conversation here where we limited the signage to the 40%, if I'm not mistaken. And really, it looks nice. Forget about the fact that this is a gaming establishment. I mean, I like the limitation on the signage, and I wish we had an open conversation beyond gaming establishment about signage and lights, flashing lights and stuff like that. I know that our code has plenty of limitations on that. Sometimes it's a matter of enforcing what those limitations are and what those ordinances are, but just wanted to bring that up as a point of discussion. The third point that I wanted to bring to the discussion is that Mrs. Davis, did I get your name right? Mrs. Davis, I think, is bringing a point that is important to this discussion, and that is that this is probably one of the first places where the formal discussions about where the city goes starts. So ultimately, the city council has the final decision. It is good to remind ourselves that we make a recommendation to city council on the direction to go, not necessarily the final decision. So with that in mind, and thinking about where the city goes, it is worth reviewing what Mr. Olson is telling us here, that the city has made a decision of putting a limit on the number of gaming establishments that are in town. And currently we have up to 7. So I almost see our technical recommendation as almost determining where these establishments are and not necessarily, whether this is allowed or not. If we get technical about this, I feel like we're relatively limited on what we can do. I mean, on the technical side, I don't see how this would be, we can go against this, this petition for a special use permit. It is pretty compelling when we hear that there are few, if any, serious police reports about any serious activity that is negative, undesirable in the city. I don't want to forget Mrs. Davis's comments about where this city is going to be and how the city projects itself to the rest of the state and the nation, the world. And I have my own personal reservations about this, but at the same time, probably mostly because I don't do it. I don't do this kind of gaming and stuff like that. But again, from the technical side, I don't see the limitation, or I don't see how we can oppose this special use permit. Again, not that I necessarily oppose it, but that's kind of the way I'm seeing it right now.
Thanks. Mr. Klein?
Yeah, I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to vote yes or no. I'm not too enthused about these establishments. I'm not a gambler and I rarely have a drink, so the appeals for them is not very appealing as far as I'm concerned. I think Mrs. Davis made a very fine presentation. I mean, there is a high school right behind this place. There's a daycare center across the street. I see the little kids, I live right up the street a little ways, crossing the street with the crossing guard, lots of traffic, especially at that time of the day, and to have a liquor establishment, gambling establishment right there sort of goes against the grain as far as I'm concerned. If it's really successful, I still question whether there's enough parking for all of those establishments that are there. Statistically, I agree, there is, but I mean, if there's a crowd there and this establishment's successful, I can see there are going to be cars parked all over the place, but maybe it won't be that bad. I'm curious of the petitioner, have any of the tenants, the other tenants objected? Have any of the people in the apartment building next door objected to this? We have this objection from the people across the street who have their business.
Actually, the tenants are all in favor for a gaming establishment, cafe going in there, because the tenants want more business, more revenue, more foot traffic at the strip there, and the tenants are really pleased. So what we have done so far with the building, because the building was really in horrible shape, and tenants are happy because they're all making more money, supporting their families, creating jobs, and we want nothing to do more, just improve the location even more. And and for a long time, like Dave mentioned, that building has always been in terrible shape, and a lot of the storefronts have been empty. And right away, with our renovations there, has brought, people are really looking at the location like, wow, this building is here. It used to be a horrible shape. Now it's a beautiful place, and we want to promote more businesses, create more jobs, and why it's sad to see in DeKalb County a lot of empty buildings around, and even where we have the establishment on Black Hawk Road at Fanatical, that used to be in horrible shape, and we brought nothing but good things to the area. And we want to do the same thing there, creating nice businesses to bring in positive traffic. And even though, of course, gaming, we're supposed to serve alcohol by law, but, we want to promote other things there. Food, snacks, pastries, where people can, get a cup of coffee too at the video gaming cafe. And, and we just want to do better in DeKalb. I'm a resident here in DeKalb. I'm a business owner in DeKalb. I live in DeKalb, and like Dave mentioned, there's casinos being open in Chicago. Waukegan, I think, is another site. why not why not the money stay here in DeKalb County, then go to a big corporation elsewhere?
Well, I do love your restaurant. I eat there quite often.
Thank
And
you.
I agree, over the years, and I've watched this building, I've lived there for the last 50 years, more or less, had trouble getting the units rented. You've improved it a great deal. I think that's, no question about that. And it looks much better now than it did, no
Yeah.
question about that. And you're not going to serve hard liquor, right?
No,
Just
no, no.
beer and wine.
Just beer and wine, and a lot of these places, I've been to a lot of these gaming cafes, and a lot of people are not really drinking a lot of alcohol. They're drinking water. Their main focus on enjoying themselves with the machine, with the video games on there, and have some snacks. Because it's not like a bar or a club where there's music and dancing. It's a place to relax and to unwind, and and also, like, you had a concern about the parking. I know there's a barber shop and the pet grooming shop, and a lot of their business is based on appointments. And I know the pet groomer, she is open only a few days a week by appointment only. And, there are some days where a few of those tenants are actually closed on certain days. So there's going to be adequate parking for people to go in and out, And people are not going to spend the whole day there, they're going to enjoy themselves and carry on, because it's not like, we're not like a big casino where there's, there's so many things to do. It's just gaming,
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Well, I have a few comments too. I just think, in DeKalb, we have a lot of neglected properties, and around there, I think we actually accepted some kind of gas station there that never materialized. And I always feel that because we have so many neglected properties, we make a lot of compromises just to have something in there. But I don't know if, and I agree with you, is this the right way where DeKalb wants to go? Yet another gaming establishment. I have nothing against gaming. If you want to go game, be my guest. I don't do it. I can't stand the noise of these machines, but that's something. But so that's always, for me, always been a problem with so many things that we accepted because it's the least worse, or however you want to say it. So is this what the city wants, the direction the city wants to go? So we have a place that needs a business, so let's plug in a gambling establishment. And I also don't have a problem actually with the schools because the kids won't go in there. And there's not, I think with Macy's, there's absolutely no problem. It's also very close to a school, right? And nobody will come out. And when Macy's came, they said the people who will go there were mostly senior citizens. They said grandmas, which I didn't like, but. Signage, I think, I agree with David, we do need a discussion on signage in general. We have too many flashy things that make you think there's an ambulance coming if you're driving there. There's always the argument that there are jobs created, but then when I ask, are these jobs that actually have a living wage, they usually don't. And so then that is another issue, I think, that we need to think about. Are those jobs for people who are here who actually need a full-time job? And that's often not the case. I don't know what they pay.
I know at Fanatico, I employ a lot of students, and and I am very grateful to have these students because a lot of them want to work part-time. It helps me out. It helps them out. Like when I feel good about myself when I hear, hey, I paid my rent. I'm able to pay my cell phone bill. I'm able to make my tuition payment. Oh, can I work more hours? And I'm grateful. A little opportunity, and it goes a long way. Once again,
and it's a good experience to
it's
work
a good
while you're in college.
You work with people, and you work with people from all types of backgrounds, in in establishments like restaurants, bars, and you get to know a lot of people, network as well. There's so many great benefits to working, working part of a team, time management, promoting, building relationships, and that's important in any field, and it's a.
But then what you said kind of makes my point, because it's not, somebody couldn't work there and actually have a family and support the family. So it's more part-time jobs that you're offering.
Part-time, if there's.
Which is great for the university. I
Yeah,
mean,
for the
it's great
students and for people. I would love to find somebody, that's down the road. We would want to find the right person because we want to be open, not for a short period of time, for long hours during the day where there's the most traffic, If there's no traffic 6 o'clock in the morning, we're not going to be open. We're going to do our due diligence for a little bit, experiment for a little bit.
And then it was also said that that people would go somewhere else if this wouldn't be open, but I already see how many do we have altogether? I didn't count it. We have a lot of places where video gaming is offered. So if they wouldn't go to Fanaticos, they would go to Macy's or Fatty's or wherever, not necessarily out of town. And I would like to see a study, and if you have that, what kind of money actually comes in through those establishments.
Yeah, that's public information.
Yeah, I haven't looked it up.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's I don't have the numbers, but it's, a lot of money comes to the city on that. With the state gets most of it, and we do get a portion of that, so that's information I can,
Yeah, if you just.
Provide you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I just want to look at that.
yeah,
That'd
you
be
can go to
great.
the state gaming site and look at each establishment and see how much they generate, so.
Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Wright?
You own the whole facility there?
Well, my family.
Okay. So
I run everything. I manage the property, looking to start my own business in there. Because the unit's been empty a long time, and an opportunity here in DeKalb. I live in DeKalb. I have a family here in DeKalb. I just want to take advantage of opportunity and in a good way, create jobs and make the area better.
Right.
Like I said, 2 buildings so far here in town, we've took that were really terrible shape and rehabilitate them and make them functioning assets to the community. And everything out of our pocket, no tip money, no, and we're doing the best we can and just to make DeKalb better.
Are there other storefronts there that are empty?
Yes, you have, I think if I can go in there, there'll be one more empty store. But since we've renovated, we've attracted already 2 tenants
All right.
since the,
And the number of gaming devices you're applying for is 5?
5, I think that's based on the state law and local DeKalb law.
Okay. I do, I kind of struggle with the advancement of gaming in the state, I'm glad that as a city, we've kind of put a limit on, how many we want to bring to DeKalb, and we're looking at that. I am a business owner, though, and I understand, trying to develop business, and when we look at these spaces, I struggle with, is it better to have an empty space, vacant spaces, or something that can thrive there? And so, I applaud your efforts in
Thank you.
in trying to put some things in there that are viable and that'll, benefit the city with taxes and things of that nature. So that's it for me.
That's it for
All
you.
right.
Okay, my turn. Excuse me. Watching the improvements happen as you were completing the outside and made me so curious. Was something else going in there? What was going on? it looks awesome. It is a huge improvement in that neighborhood, so I want to applaud you for doing that first.
Thank you.
Because that building,
Yeah, it was
I
a
kept
horrible.
waiting for it to fall in or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
come by and it had collapsed or something. It wasn't that bad, but it looked bad.
Yeah.
It looked horrible for that.
Horrible.
area, so-
It was an eyesore.
It was an eyesore, yeah. So you did some wonderful improvements. I am one of the ones, but probably the biggest speaker about the timing for selling liquor. When we discussed Macy's, and again, I don't like the hours. So I would plead with my fellow commissioners, whoever does the motion, to please consider that. I like the hours that we had on Macy's, and I know, you know, it's gonna be rare that somebody's gonna walk in there at 6 o'clock in the morning and have a beer. But they might walk in there at 6 o'clock in the morning and have a beer. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with it, that's too early. So I liked the fact that we were able to put the 10 a.m. Alcohol sales 10 or after. As well, I agree with the signage, and I've been by Macy's too, and I do also like that. And I know that signage there was there was some discussion as well with the city council when they were discussing signage and temporary signage. So I would encourage as well to be careful on the signage, and if we can consider what we did with Macy's in that aspect as well. I applaud you for wanting to bring something to the area. I too struggle with the fact that we've got so many gaming devices. I won't necessarily say gaming establishments, because it's not just the fact that we have all these gaming establishments, it's all the devices that are able to be in different areas in the city. I've been in the restaurants and the bars where they're sitting empty. You hardly, you know, you see somebody walk in and put a $20 bill or whatever in there. But I know it's become a very large discussion lately with the state of Illinois and in different communities. And, you know, you are bringing dollars into the city, and I appreciate that. But I do struggle with gaming being that aspect of revenue for cities and for the state. It's not, you know, it wouldn't be something that would make me oppose this, but it's something of concern that I have just because, excuse me, the detriment that can go along with it. And granted, as David said, you know, people aren't going to walk in there and sit for hours at a time. They'll walk in and, you know, feed the machine a couple of times and then leave if they haven't hit. But it's the concept, I think, that it brings to discussion, the stigma that happens with gaming. And so that's just something I had to say. But I applaud you for bringing this in, and if we approve it and if the city approves it, good luck to you, because
Thank you.
it'll bring some money into the city, and I'm a proponent for bringing money into my community. So, so kudos to you. You have another
One question, can it be a condition of the special use that there be no liquor other than beer and wine there?
So restricting that there be no liquor served?
Pardon?
You're indicating that, can you make a condition that there's no liquor served, just beer and wine?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's what your plan
Yeah,
is.
beer and wine.
I just want to be sure that it
100%.
doesn't get changed in a year and
codified
suddenly.
there.
Huh?
Yeah, I think we
Codified.
restricted the time in the Macy's, and that was part of the ordinance in terms of when you can serve, so I think you can do that if you want to make that part of your recommendation. There has to be liquor
I mean,
served.
I guess you'd have to come back here or
Yeah.
somewhere if they wanted to change that, but at least it,
Yeah, you make that recommendation, then we can run that through, and our attorneys, when we get to the council, but I think you can do that. You have to have served liquor, that's a state law and local law too, so.
right.
But I think you can recommend, I think, that what type of alcohol can be served.
Thank you. I want to offer the public one more opportunity to speak before we close the public hearing.
All right.
So if there's any further questions or comments, you're welcome to come to the podium. Mhm.
I learned a long time ago that if you don't bend, you'll break. And I understand that the city definitely needs money. I've seen this town go through such hard times. I've seen it go from a very small rural community where retired farmers came to live, and the only street lights were on Lincoln Highway, to a very thriving NIU with 25,000 kids, and at the most, we only had, I think, about 9 bars in town, and most of them along Lincoln Highway. And now I think we're going through a sort of bust period. I'm hoping the new governor will give more money out to everybody. And if this goes through, then so be it. There's nothing I can do about it, except hope for the best. Hope that the establishment looks fine enough so it's not an embarrassment or imparts a negative impression of the town. And to put as many restrictions as you can on it, because it is in a residential community, there are a lot of children play in, walk through. And I think that's just about it. And I leave it up to you. And I wish the best for you, Simo. I do thank you for making it look better.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I turn it back over to the commissioners for any further questions or comments.
No, it's definitely over there.
No?
So
Nothing further?
just some suggestions. Again, the Exhibit A with the conditions does not include the restrictions on the hours or the signage, as I think discussed. There's some definite interest in that. So if you make part of your motion, if you want to add those in to have the same conditions as in terms of the sale of alcohol and the timing and the signage restrictions as Macy's, you can just state that. You don't have to repeat every detail about that. I think that would be adequate for the motion. We can just, if that's the wish of the commission, we can just copy what was done with the Macy's and put it in there. So you don't have to go through every detail of the signage if you want to make it a little bit easier.
Mr. Olson, it wasn't clear to me, completely clear to me whether we can specify these limitations on alcohol that is served that Mr. Klein was suggesting. Is that something that we can recommend? Or
I think
not?
you can recommend that.
We
yeah.
can recommend.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question also. So as you were doing your report, you had made the comment that you believe that they had done the restriping already. Do we need to leave number 3
Leave that
there,
in.
or- Okay.
They've done it. I drove by. I'm not sure. We haven't inspected it, so.
Okay.
we
So
just
leave it in there because of, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
I
clarify.
saw some action on Monday on that area,
there?
strip in and stuff like that, but
Awesome.
again, they haven't done the
Yeah,
inspection. so-
just leave it in.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure. Okay. So if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I wanted to make a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Just for the sake of putting it out there, I think we have had discussions here in this commission about the nature of this gaming facilities and stuff like that. I think it's at the state level that they have decided that this is gaming as opposed to gambling. I don't know if I'm out of my place by calling it gambling. I think that's a little bit of what brings discomfort to many of us, at least me. It is what it is, and gambling can become a vice. In that sense, it's not a good thing. Same thing with alcohol and many other things. As uncomfortable as I may be with that, that is not sufficient in my case to limit the support for this particular location. In fact, the more I think about it, if I were to oppose this particular request, I would have even more reason to oppose the Macy's establishment, which was even closer to a school than this one is, for example. So having said that, I think my vote will be in favor of the special permit. Oh my gosh, special use permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's a good point that you bring up about the gaming versus the gambling. And I remember when we had a conversation, it was before Macy's, so it was a couple before, where I think that, I agree, I wish they would come up with different wording, like call it video gambling or something, because video gaming, kids play video games, and I think that's been a confusion that has been brought up a couple of times. So I acknowledge the fact that you've brought that up. So that's a good point. So with that being said, anything further? I'll take a motion, whoever would like to make one.
I will try to articulate a motion here. Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward its findings of fact and recommend to the City Council approval of a special use permit for video game establishment at 122 East Hillcrest Drive per the conditions as indicated on Exhibit A. And I would like to amend Exhibit A, I don't know if this is the time to do it, to incorporate limitations similar to the ones that were approved for the Macy's establishment. Some of those included the 40% signage coverage limitation, limitations on the alcohol served to wine and beer, and the limitations on the hours of operation of the establishment.
I'll second that.
With the signage, there was also limits on the advertising of liquor and gaming on the wall sign, the temporary signs, and the window signs. So you want all the restrictions on the signage?
Yes, please.
Okay. The 40% was just for the window signs. It was one
Okay,
part of it.
I see.
So you want
Thank you.
all of them, the
Oh,
windows.
correct. So
Okay.
they should reflect the limitations we put on the
Okay.
Macy's, or that were approved for the Macy's establishment.
So motion has been made by Castro and seconded by Klein. Roll call, please.
Castro?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Barbie?
Yes.
Chair Doe?
Yes,
5 yes.
Motion passes, yeah.
thank you. So there's no further business reports.
Next commission meeting be Wednesday, July 3rd. We'll have one hearing for Park 88. That's the big industrial park on Peace Road. There'll be some amendments to the various development standards in that agreement to accommodate future growth. There's no end user proposed at this time. There's some changes to accommodate when a next user comes in that will make that a little bit easier to go through. So that's the only item we have on that agenda, or any hearing we have on that. Some past items going through the commission, that's gone through the council. At the May 28th council meeting, they did approve the levels rezoning, went through the commission. Also, the Hometown Sports Center, sports bar, the outdoor patio and deck was approved. And the Park District's change in their berm and landscaping on South 4th Street in front of the rec center was also approved, both on first and second reading for all three of those. This reminder, the commission should receive your paychecks for the first 6 months by end of July, so just remind you of that. That's all I had for reports.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
there being.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I wanted to ask about the property, the Illini Tire property. What's going on with that?
I think it's still in the same ownership, and I know that's on the market, but nobody's come forward to the city with any proposal for any redevelopment.
So the guy that, you remember the guy that came here, that was purchasing it, and we had, talked about the curb and all that. He didn't.
Yeah, that
Didn't
was
go
right
for it.
before I got here, so I wasn't recall that project, but I think that was the current owner that had Illini Tire, right? Or
And it was one of his employees, I think, was going to
Yeah.
purchase it, and.
there's been no contact to the city in terms of any type of development ideas on there, so as of today.
Madam Chair, can I take 3 minutes and bring up a point
Go
of
for it.
discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Olson, I would really appreciate your help as I go along on my point. 3 minutes, only 3 minutes.
Go ahead.
While I was reviewing the minutes for a past meeting, the concept of grandfathered, I was reminded of the concept of grandfather that was quoted recently in a meeting of ours. And I was thinking really hard about this, and I want to go through what grandfathered is, and please correct me if I'm mistaken. My understanding is, let's say that this building is privately owned, and this building today is Zone A. Tomorrow, City Council passes an ordinance that would make this building non-conforming. We basically, in the process of moving forward, we allow this building to become a legal non-conforming. So it doesn't conform to the new ordinance, zoning, whatever it is, but it's legal. We let it go, and that's the grandfathering process. The key question here, I'm going to make it as a statement, you correct me if I'm mistaken, the moment that the owner of this building has a request for rezoning for this building, for whatever it is that that owner wants to do, we would ask that owner to bring the building back into conformance based on the most recent ordinance that was passed. Is that a true statement or not?
Well, I think it depends what, you're talking about a legal non-conforming use, and as for rezoning on that, it would depend what zoning district they would be asking for. Yes, if you do rezone or take a legal non-conforming, something grandfathered in, and there's limitations on expanding it, doing any improvements to it, pretty much if you do anything to it, you got to bring it in.
Correct.
That, whatever you do to it's got to be in compliance with the ordinance.
Correct.
If you rezone it to like a planned development or something, the planned development allows waivers or different standards to be applied that you can, you wouldn't have to bring the whole building, if it's approved, into compliance. You know, you could, I don't know if that answers your question, but, right, we wouldn't rezone a property that's non-compliant and rezone it unless it complied with that zoning classification.
So part of the reason I bring this up is because it bothers me that it is almost as if the system is set such that we can end up with a significant fraction of the city being legal nonconformance, in which case it almost defeats the purpose in changing ordinances and so on and so forth. So I was wondering, I mean, what I'm hearing is that it almost depends on a case-by-case basis on whether we would require the property to come back to being a conforming or legal conforming property in the process of being rezoned. Am I hearing that part correctly?
Yeah, it's, I mean, the legal, we do have a lot of legal non-conforming, because if you change your ordinances to standards, and trying to bring those in
Correct.
conformance is very difficult, because it can be, you know, you can't, there's limitations on, as I said, you know, improvements you make, you got to make sure it's conformant, but the change of ownership doesn't change that, so it's, you know, there's mechanisms in place to try and get things eventually into conformance. It just takes some time, and certain restrictions, and you don't want to put a hardship on property owners, you know, of
Correct.
indicating
Correct.
now you got to bring into compliance, and they're not able to do that, so.
Okay. So given that, and just to finish this topic, I just invite my fellow commissioners to be as aware as we can be on these opportunities to bring properties to be conforming, mainly because that's why, I mean, we pass, you know, new ordinances to
Yeah,
bring
and
things
with
together.
example tonight with this special use permit, any special use we take, a rezoning, we take a look at, especially with existing property like this, and we take a look, what can we do to improve this, to bring it
Correct.
more into compliance?
Correct.
And we did that with the conditions, is adding some landscaping to this property, can make sure the parking lot is striped properly per our UDO.
Correct.
Make sure there's handicap signs. We take a look at garbage enclosures. We did that with Macy's, make sure they get their garbage enclosed to meet the UDO. So
Correct.
kind of look at things for the special use permit. You want a special use. In exchange, let's look at the property and maybe we can bring some things into compliance to make it a little better appearance. So we take that opportunity when we can.
Correct.
Like in this case here, to bring the site into more compliance, like things you only can, the parking, they did have enough per the UDO, but there could have been another tenant space go in that location that wasn't a special use, and they wouldn't have to change their parking,
Correct.
so.
Correct.
We take that opportunity to kind of bring things into compliance.
And I do
better.
appreciate your
Yeah.
efforts on that department for sure, and I want to make it abundantly clear that the question and the topic about grandfathering had nothing to do with the case that we were dealing with right now. That was unrelated.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So I have a question,
Oh.
as David has,
Sorry.
no,
This is
no,
going to expand.
because yeah. So normally, in the situation that David is asking, when somebody brings a project to you and you're reviewing it, you generally would recommend or discuss with them what items they would need to do to bring it into compliance.
It's an existing
Prior
site,
to
yeah.
us getting it typically, correct? Like, is there ever a time or a chance where after we've seen it and we think everything has been taken care of, then you may do one last review or an inspection or something and go, oh, wait, this item didn't get taken care of or we didn't even realize that this was there or whatever. Would there ever be a situation where they still would not be in compliance even though we may have thought they were?
I
Or
mean,
would that all be taken care of before
for
we see
existing
it?
sites that are already developed, I mean, like this site they don't meet the setback requirements. There's no way we can correct that,
Right,
unless we affect the building. We're not going to have part of the building taken down or
right.
start taking out landscaping, but we can do things to improve the appearance, to bring it more in the UDO site, things like adding landscaping or screening a dumpster, or there's some things you can do. So, I mean, certainly it's possible but we like to look at them early and get them discussed with the applicant so they're aware and they're agreeing to it.
And then they have time to
Bring it to
review
the commission, and you can add
changes.
things if you see something, but I guess it's possible something could be noticed at the end, but I like to bring them up early and things that we can do, not try to, bring the whole, it's not entirely in compliance, we did bring a few things into it, so.
And obviously, a lot of times, there's quite a cost factor involved. And so they want to be able to have that planned in when it gets to us by that point.
Yeah.
So that they're aware of,
We want to discuss it up front and
Right.
make sure, see if they agree with it or
Okay.
negotiate something, and then bring that forward to see what the commission thinks, so,
okay.
yeah. We've done that at a few other locations. With something new, brand-new green site, something entirely new building, then they can have waivers in them too, but it's obviously a lot less. We want to make sure that things are in compliance with those, and if there are some waivers, they're justified and they're brought forward to the commission to make it clear. But some of those are based on the site design or size of the lot or different little things going on, so.
Is this all part of the 3 minutes?
Sorry, yeah.
We went over.
I just went over. Gosh darn it.
10 minutes ago.
Anything else?
Just curious.
No.
No? Would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Klein, second by Wright. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.